Em wants me to start taking audio notes regarding my research, so here we go. December 13th, 2092. Researcher Oliver's notes at Xenon Plateau's science outpost. About 2 weeks ago, a team was sent out to investigate a dimensional disturbance. They brought back a creature who looks somewhat like the common folklore depiction of mermaids. The mission report says he was stranded on land but was still able to breathe. Afterwards, he was taken back to the science outpost for research and for secrecy purposes. I was assigned to study him and attempt to communicate. Um, I guess we should start with physical characteristics. His skin is a dark shade of green. He has scales on his tail, but nowhere else on his body. He has several pieces of jewelry, and he wears a necklace with a small dagger attached. He has small horns on his head, and he has several facial markings. I can't tell if the facial markings are biological or cosmetic. Um, he has a scar on his stomach and two very clean scars near the top of his chest. Those scars look more like surgical scars than anything else, or possibly they're a part of his species' life cycle. Um, I had also brought him a few types of food that day. Based on his eating habits, I think that his species is carnivorous or omnivorous. Anyways, not much progress in communication was made over the next few days. Um, though, whenever I talked to other personnel, he was watching pretty intently. I tried talking to him a few more times, but he either just listened or responded in his own language. Eventually, we made some progress in communicating. One time, when I was bringing the mermaid some food, he had pointed to it and said food in English. I said yes, food. He then pointed to me and asked if my name was Oliver. I nodded. He then said something in his own language, thought for a moment, and pointed to himself and said that his name is Sereni. I tried to talk with him more, but his grammar was very messy and he didn't know how to reply to most of what I said. The next day, I had brought him some more food. I asked if he would let me take him out of the aquarium and do some tests on him. He seemed to understand, said that I could, but he doesn't want any of the other researchers to. Hold on. Where are my notes from the tests? Okay. Um, so facial markings, scars below his nipples, horns, went over all of that already. He's got two sets of gills, one set on his neck and one set on the sides of his abdomen. The gills on his neck are usually obstructed by his necklace, so I think they're non-essential. He has a heartbeat where a human would. He seems to have lungs or something similar for out-of-water breathing. He's got several sets of fins, which he has full control over. He has a large set of fins to the sides of his back, and another large fin along his spine. He also has fins coming off of his ears, but they don't seem to serve much purpose as they are quite small. He also let me take a blood sample, but the analysis of that hasn't come back yet. His tail starts at his hips and seems to be his main form of propulsion in water. Overall, I think his internal physiology is similar to humans. I also gave him a few logic puzzles, which he solved very quickly. The next day, I made a pretty big leap in communicating with him. I asked him what he calls his species. He didn't understand what I meant at first, so I explained that members of my species are called humans, and he seemed to understand that and said that his species is called Salea. He also gave a description of what his species is like. It was a little tricky to figure out all of what he was saying, as his grammar was still fairly weak. But based on what I could understand, his species is fairly unified. There are only two political powers with majority Soleil populations, and they're allies with each other. His, for lack of a better term, country is also mostly democratic. However, I think there is some kind of dynasty which would contradict that. Serenity's parents are apparently members of that dynasty, but he was not the official heir. It also sounds like his country is in the midst of some sort of cold war with a land dwelling country. Each one is trying to technologically outdo the other. Based on what he was saying, I think that's the whole reason he ended up on this plane of existence in the first place. It was a little hard to figure out what he was saying, but it sounds like his country was trying to be the first to intentionally send someone to a different plane, and he had volunteered to be the test subject. I must stress again that it was hard to figure out what he was saying because of his limited grammar and vocabulary, but this is how I interpreted it. I was surprised that he wasn't trying to get back home. He said that he thinks that us researchers at the Science Outpost know what we're doing, so he's decided to cooperate for now. He also said that he knew getting stuck was a possibility, so I think that's why he hasn't really been trying to get home. Um, I think that's it for what I've learned so far. Um, oh, he consented to a scan, which we'll be doing tomorrow. Hopefully, that will give me a better idea of his internal physiology. In the future, I'm going to be working on further communication efforts. I think that's all that I have for now. End log.